Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to cover adding a Google account to Orbit Communicator. I'm starting with a fresh installation of Orbit, so going to Settings and Advanced. The first thing we need to do is to enable the Google API, which we do down here. Now, if I click on Connect to Google API, the next thing it's going to want are credentials for our account. And the easy way to get those is by clicking on the link here to the Google Cloud Console. Now I have a fairly new profile set up which has a few calendar events and a few emails contained within it. So if I click on this link, this is giving us access to Google's Cloud API Console. And because it's the first time I've used it, the first thing I need to do is agree to their terms of service. And I'll say yes, I'll have their updates as well. Agree and continue. Okay, so this is the standard API console, which will give you access to all manner of things you probably don't want. However, in this case, we're going to need access to the email and calendar API services. First thing I'll need to do is to create an API project for Orbit Communicator. So we're going to select a project and say New Project. I'm going to call this My Orbit Communicator. I don't have any organisation set up, so I'll just create that. It takes a little while to think about it. So now we have the project set up. The next thing we need to do is to enable the APIs that we need access to. So we need access to the calendar API, so we'll enable that. We go back, and the other thing we need access to is the email API, so we'll enable that. Okay, so we're now set up with access to the two APIs that we want. The next thing we need are a set of credentials. So if we come down to credentials, it's going to be an OAuth 2 client. So we're going to do a create credentials for an OAuth client. And then we're going to click on configure consent screen. So it's not going to let us select an internal user type because we're using a free account. So I'm going to go for external and create. And they're going to want some basic information. So I'm just going to fill this out. So I've just entered some details here. So the name you want to use, any name will do. This is my demo email address. I've uploaded a logo, purely optional, just to help you identify what it is you're connecting to, and my contact email down here in this case. So if we do a save and continue on that. So the next thing we do is to give it information about what scopes it's allowed to use. So in this case, we need it to access, or be allowed to access, the Gmail and calendar APIs. So if we do add or remove scopes, so I can filter what it shows here by clicking API, Gmail API, or API, calendar API. So these are all the permissions that are associated with the calendar or the email. If I extend that down so I can see everything, I'm going to need this one, which is full access to email, and this one, which is full access to the calendar. So if I do that and update, that's updated our two scopes here. So I'll save that and continue. And the next thing we need to do is to authorize ourselves to have access to it. So we'll do add users, and we'll add in my email address in this case, and do add. So that's added that there. Save and continue. Now this looks very complicated, but unfortunately this is the way that you access the Google API. So now we've created the consent screen, we need to go to credentials. So if I click on credentials here, we're going to need to create some credentials, and this will be an OAuth client ID, and it's going to be for a web application. Name doesn't really matter. And if we go to redirect URIs is the important part, so we need to add that for normal connections and that as an option. And in this case we're doing something a little bit different in that we're using a virtual machine to run Orbit from, so with a slightly longer redirect URI. So once we have all those, we can do create, and again this is just all boilerplate information, so it's adding from a script. So this is our consent screen with a couple of credentials. So if I take the first credential with a copy and go back to my application, I can put that in there on my second screen, and I can put that in there. And incidentally, I'll be deleting these as soon as I finish the video, so they're not real or active. And we go back to this, I can OK that. So we're kind of finished here, and on this screen we can click on Save Credentials, and I can click on the account I want to use and say I want access to the email and the calendar, and hey presto, we have a connection to our API. So now that I have a connection to the Google API, I can go ahead and create an account. So if we come across here and add an account, it'll be my Google account, and the type will be a Google API account, and we'll enable mail and calendar, and this is my demo username, and we'll attach an emoji to it. I'm going to put in a different from address rather than the account name. We'll save that. So now we have an account. I can go ahead and start the account, and that's going to ask me to verify I am who I am. Continue. Okay, so this should now try and synchronize the email addresses we have on the Google account and the calendar events. I spelled that wrong. Let's go back and just tidy that up. Okay, so in the meantime it's synchronized 100 events. We should have had some emails come in, so if we have a look at some messages, these are the 2 emails from the Google account, and if we have a look on calendar and go to today, or rather when the events are, those are the events it's pulled in. If I get a month for you, that's better. So we have 2 national holidays, 2 birthdays from contacts, and 2 scheduled events. So if I go and have a look at the calendar on the Google side, these are the 2 national holidays, those are the 2 birthdays, and those are the 2 events. So if we create a new event on the Orbit side for demonstration purposes, go to the 15th, new entry, my new demo event, 11 AM for 1 hour, just a test, and we add that. Okay, so that's synchronized immediately across to Google. So if we now have a look at the Google Calendar at the 15th, it's not appeared yet because Google's not terribly quick when it comes to synchronizing with its API. But if we do a page reload on that, there's the event we just created. If I go back and say, right, okay, we'll edit that and make that from 11, we'll change that to 12, update the entry, so it's immediately changed there. That's the synchronization with Google. So once that appears, it's actually been synchronized. So if we go across the 15th, and this time it's actually updated it straight away. I don't know how Google works under the hood, but I'm guessing it polls every so many seconds. So that's synchronizing one way. If we, on this side, on the 15th, create another new one, we set that to a time, how about 2 p.m. Okay, save that away. Now, the synchronization at the moment is automatic from the Orbit side, so Orbit will push out events immediately. Coming the other way, as we haven't set up an incoming receiver, we need to do an import from Google. So that will manually pull in any changes from Google, and there's the new event. We could do more complex things. So for example, if we start on the 7th and have a repeater, and if we leave it as an all-day event, we should be able to make it repeat every day, and save that. So this has added a repeating event every day. If we come back to the Orbit side and do an import, so there's our repeater. So it's handling complex events as well, and you can change the dates on individuals and override the sequence, etc., etc. So if we do a test compose as well, when we do compose, if I send it to Orbit at UK, email 123. That's automatically going to send via the Google account because it's the only account we have. If we do a send now, there it is now going, and it's gone. There's it, message dispatched. And if we look in sent, then there's the message in sent. So that looks like it's worked quite happily. So we have email, send and receive, and we have calendar, import and export automatically. Okay, thanks for watching.